In this video, let's compare some of the key metrics related to performance, and let's see how the 3D NAND flash memory stacks up against the 2D NAND. So before I go into that, I want to say, why the industry moved from 2D NAND to 3D NAND. And we have discussed the reasons in some of the previous videos, but just to recall them, one was this cell to cell interference was just becoming too much in a 2D NAND flash memory, especially with cells becoming coming too close to each other. And the other reason was the number of electrons which is stored in the cell was decreasing, and the number of electrons needed to distinguish one bit from another was becoming too small to manage. So because of these two reasons and others, the industry gravitated towards 3D NAND flash memory. So if you look at the 3D NAND flash memory, how does it solve the number of electron problem? Well, if you look at 2D NAND flash, it has a feature size of F. So the available area, which is available to store charge, is just proportional to this feature size, and it's related to F square. On the other hand, in 3D NAND flash memory, you have much larger surface area which is available to store charge. So if you think about a 3D NAND flash memory cell which has a channel radius of R and a height of H, you have all the perimeter which of the cylinder, which is 2 pi times R, multiplied by the height of this cell. All the surface area is now available to store charge. And as a result of that, you see in this graph below, the number of electrons which are available per level. So that is, if you had a multi-level cell, the number of electrons you would need to distinguish between one level versus another was going down with the 2D NAND flash memory. As you were again shrinking the cell, the feature size was shrinking, the amount of area which was available to store charge was going down, and you can see at 16 nanometer node of 2D NAND flash memory, you had roughly just 16 electrons available to distinguish one level from another. Now, when the industry moved to 3D NAND flash memory, now suddenly you have much larger area to store charge, and hence you have much more electrons which are available per level of this multi-level cell. And furthermore, what's the good news is that the roadmap for this 3D NAND flash memory, it says that going forward you can improve the amount of memory in your die by essentially stacking more and more layers in your 3D NAND flash memory stack, and you don't, at least for the next couple of generations, don't have to worry about shrinking the size of this 3D NAND flash cell. And hence you can maintain, not only do you have larger number of electrons per bit, but you can maintain them as you go forward and scale your memory size by stacking more layers in your stack. The number of electrons which are available per bit are in the hundreds, and they're much higher as compared to 2D NAND. Okay. The other problem with 2D NAND was cell-to-cell interference. And we saw this in one of the previous videos that this is much better, or this cell-to-cell interference is much smaller in the 3D NAND world, because all of your charge is stored in this charge trap flash layer, which is surrounded on all sides by this control gate, which has a very good electrostatic control over this charge trap flash memory. So very few lines of field can actually leak out, and there's almost negligible, or almost zero interference with the cell which is adjacent to it. There is a little bit, again, interference between cells which are on top of each other on alternate word lines, and there might still be some interference there, but again, that is also small because the charge trap flash memory itself is very thin, and the only way these two cells can interact is through these field lines which would escape from here and go to the other cell. But most of these field lines would terminate on the control gate which is surrounding this charge trap flash memory from all sides. So as a result of that, both of these things, that is the number of electrons being higher, as well as the cell coupling between two cells, that's also significantly lower. So shown here is the data which Samsung presented for their first product on 3D9, and they claim that the cell to cell coupling is 84% lower in a 3D9 flash memory. And this, combined with the higher number of electrons in the 3D9 flash cell, gives you a much tighter distribution of threshold voltage. So this red curve is the threshold distribution of a planar NAND flash cell, and if you contrast it versus the 3D9, if you just compare the width of this Gaussian distribution, it's much smaller in 3D9 flash memory. So this 3D9 flash memory, it results in a much smaller distribution, or a much tighter distribution of threshold. And also another thing is that because you have this less cell to cell coupling, not only is this distribution tight, but it remains tight even after you program and erase these cells. So this is illustrated in this particular figure. So this is shown for a multi-level cell which has 4 bits. So this was corresponding, each of these peaks here corresponds to each of these bits in this multi-level cell. And what is shown here is what happens after you program and erase these cells for a certain number of cycles. So what you see in the planar case is that this distribution, it starts to become wider because there is a lot of cell to cell interference, also degradation in the cell, and you have a much wider distribution. And usually after 3000 or so cycles, these different Gaussians try to merge with each other, and that's where you limit the number of program and erase cycles, or the number of times you can program and erase the cell. Versus in 2D versus in the 3D NAND flash memory, you can see that this distribution, it remains tight even after you program and erase the cell as much as 35,000 times. So shown here is very impressive data which shows that this multi-level cell, even after you have programmed and erased it 35,000 times, these distributions which correspond to the different bits in a multi-level cell are very well distinguishable from each other, and the endurance performance is excellent. So we see that already in terms of endurance, 3D NAND flash memory is much better as compared to 2D NAND flash memory cell. Now, another advantage that this team reported was related to the speed. So if you look at this table which compares the data between, or the performance data between planar NAND flash memory based on their 21 nanometer node versus their first generation of 3D NAND, immediately you see that the program as well as the read speed, they are better as compared to what you get in a 2D NAND flash memory. Now, at first glance, this might seem a little counterintuitive because the 3D NAND flash memory cell being a much larger cell, so the cell has a much larger dimension, has hence correspondingly the word lines and the bit lines would have more resistive and capacitive components, and you might think it would take much larger charging time to essentially charge these word lines and bit lines, which is in fact true. But this program and read time is often essentially, especially the program time in a NAND flash array, it's often limited by the cell to cell interference. So what happens is, when you program a particular bit, you then have to essentially check for the bits which are adjacent to that and see if they got disturbed, or many times there might be, you have to do a lot of checks after you program a cell to make sure that all it didn't disturb all the cells around it, or if you read a cell again, it didn't cause any read disturb. But since the cell to cell interference is so low and the electrostatics is so good in a 3D NAND flash memory, you can, in fact, you get much better program time or much smaller program time in a 3D NAND flash memory, because you can just, you don't have to worry about all those extra things that you have to do in a 2D NAND flash memory. So shown here is some data which is very impressive, and it's showing that you can write data or even read data at very impressive speeds which were not achievable in 2D planar based flash memory. So very happy to report the 3D NAND flash memory wins in terms of endurance hands down, and also has much better program speed as compared to the 2D NAND flash array.